Imagine a glittering ballroom filled with the city's elite, their diamonds catching every beam of chandelier light. The music is soft, yet tension crackles in the air like static electricity. Suddenly, all chatter stops. Heads turn as a pregnant woman in an elegant gown sweeps through the doors, flanked by stern-faced security guards. She holds a slim folder of documents, ownership papers to $1 billion empire. Eyes dart to her husband on the far side of the room. He stands frozen, a stunning young mistress clinging to his arm. In that charged moment, betrayal, revenge, and power collide, setting the stage for the scandal of the decade. Gregory Harrington was born into a world of starched collars, polished shoes, and hushed corridors echoing with old money whispers. He was the heir to the Harrington Empire, a vast conglomerate that had begun as a humble shipping operation in the mid-1800s. Over generations, the Harrington family extended its reach to luxury hotels, real estate developments, and philanthropic ventures that echoed across Europe and the Americas. Growing up in London's upscale Belgravia district, Gregory was introduced early to grand parties, charitable functions, and negotiations over tea with visiting dignitaries. Despite the endless swirl of family obligations, his father Charles Harrington always impressed upon him a single guiding principle. Reputation is everything. Protect it with your life. Gregory's mother, the regal Victoria Harrington, was no less formidable. She commanded a private art collection valued in the hundreds of millions. As a founding board member of the Tate Modern, she took Gregory by the hand through corridors of priceless paintings, whispering lessons about legacy and responsibility. When Gregory turned 10, she curated an exhibition of young emerging artists in his honor. That was the first time he learned how easily one could shape public perception through wealth and connections. From that point forward, Gregory was groomed for greatness. He attended Eton, then Oxford, majoring in international business. He was the quintessential gentleman, tall, dashing, articulate, and capable of dazzling any room with his charm. Young men envied him. Young women fluttered around him like moths to a flame. His father's empire would one day rest firmly on Gregory's shoulders. There was never a doubt in anyone's mind that he'd be worthy of the task. But behind the glamour lurked a restless ambition that gnawed at Gregory's insides. He wasn't content merely to follow in his father's footsteps. He wanted to surpass them. He dreamed of expanding the Harrington Empire into new industries, forging alliances that would catapult the family name from storied old money clan to unstoppable global juggernaut. Fate, though, has a way of complicating even the best-laid plans. Life began to change swiftly for Gregory when he fell in love with and married Sophia Moretti, a Milanese heiress with a fierce intellect and striking beauty. She was the daughter of Augusto Moretti, a self-made billionaire who had revolutionized Italy's luxury automobile market. More than that, Sophia brought her own sense of style and passion to the Harrington name. She was someone who believed in innovation, daring, and forging new paths, a perfect match for Gregory's ambition, or so everyone thought. When the Harrington-Moretti wedding took place in Lake Como, it was hailed as one of the grandest events of the decade, rumored to have cost upward of 10 million euros. Dignitaries, celebrities, think the likes of business moguls like Kevin O'Leary and philanthropic icons from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation graced the lavish ceremony. And for a while, the newlyweds were the epitome of happiness, with tabloids praising their union as a match made in heaven. Yet beneath the radiant smiles and carefully curated Instagram posts, tensions brewed. Gregory threw himself into the Harrington conglomerate with unstoppable fervor, while Sophia dove into philanthropic ventures and her emerging fashion line. Their worlds began to drift apart. Over time, private dinners became lonely affairs, overshadowed by urgent board meetings and phone calls spanning time zones. And as often happens in circles of enormous wealth, temptation crept in. The truth behind Gregory's affair would remain hidden for far longer than it should have. But nothing stays buried forever, especially not in a family that sees and hears everything. By the time whispers reached Sophia's ears, Gregory was teetering on the brink of a scandal that would rock London and Milan alike. No one could have predicted how spectacularly it would unravel, least of all Gregory himself. Sophia Harrington née Moretti prided herself on her independence. She had grown up in a luxurious villa on the outskirts of Milan. Yet she'd been raised not as a delicate ornament, but as a strong, determined woman. She volunteered at animal shelters, advocated for sustainable agriculture, and poured her heart into Moretti philanthropic causes. Unlike many in her social circle, she believed in rolling up her sleeves and making a real difference. It was precisely this blend of compassion and strength that captured Gregory's heart. But marriage to Gregory demanded more than affection. It required a kind of absorption into the Harrington brand. She attended endless banquets, smiled for countless photographs, and navigated boardroom politics that would intimidate the bravest of hearts. Though unaccustomed to the archaic traditions of British aristocracy, Sophia adapted, determined to merge the Harrington and Moretti legacies into something grander and more meaningful. But over time, cracks began to show. The Harrington estate in Surrey, an opulent manor with sprawling gardens reminiscent of a classic English fairy tale, became more of a museum than a home. Events, galas, charitable auctions, they never seemed to end. Gregory was determined to make an impact beyond just shipping and hotels. He sought partnerships in tech startups, negotiations with green energy firms, even rumored dealings with influential figures in Silicon Valley. Meeting after meeting, flight after flight, he was rarely home. Sophia might not have minded the long hours if Gregory still found time for her. But soon her calls to him went unanswered for hours. Romantic getaways were rescheduled ad infinitum. On many nights she dined alone at a table set for two. It was in those quiet moments, while running her fingers along the edges of an untouched dinner plate, that she first felt the pang of impending loneliness. Ironically, Sophia became pregnant just as the distance between them grew insurmountable. The news of her pregnancy filled her with joy and trepidation alike. She fantasized that the baby might bring Gregory back into her life, reminding him of the vow they made by Lake Como. But as her belly swelled, his presence remained as elusive as ever. In that emotional vacuum, her personal staff began to whisper. At first it was subtle remarks, unusual late-night calls, suspicious itinerary changes. Then it grew bolder. A loyal maid, Maria, hinted one afternoon that she had seen a woman's earring in one of Gregory's jackets. Sophia's heart froze. She reminded herself not to jump to conclusions. The Harrington staff was large mistakes could happen. But the gnawing doubt refused to subside. When Maria discreetly left a photograph on Sophia's vanity, Gregory stepping out of the Four Seasons lobby in New York, arm in arm, with a statuesque brunette, Sophia's worst fears became tangible. She confronted Gregory that very night. He denied everything, of course, apologized for letting business associates get too familiar, claimed it was paparazzi sensationalism. For a time, she believed him. She wanted desperately to believe him. But then came the suspicious credit card bills with charges at upscale boutiques in Paris where Sophia hadn't traveled. Private jet logs that didn't align with the business trips Gregory claimed he was on. Subtleties only a sharp mind like Sophia's could detect. One by one, pieces of the puzzle fell into place. Still, she collected her evidence, quietly resisting any confrontation until she was absolutely certain. While Gregory was away in Hong Kong, sealing a major energy deal, Sophia took the bold step of confiding in her father, Augusto Moretti. A wise businessman who had clawed his way to the top, Augusto had no patience for men who mistreated his daughter. He flew to London, met with her in secret, and arranged for her legal protection. If Gregory was indeed betraying her, she would be ready to defend herself and her unborn child. Sophia felt a simmering rage, but also heartbreak. She remembered the man who had shown up at her charity event in Milan, with a single red rose, determined to woo her away from a dinner date with a visiting aristocrat. That man had told her they could build a better world together. That man was nowhere to be found. In his place stood a stranger consumed by power status and apparently infidelity. The time for illusions was over. She had a baby to protect, a family name to uphold, and a heartbreak to avenge. The seeds of discontent were planted. All that remained was the perfect stage for confrontation. As fate would have it, that stage would be a gala so grand that every camera in London would be pointed in Gregory Harrington's direction. Her name was Elena Petrova. Born in St. Petersburg, she grew up amidst opulent ballrooms and artistic salons. Elena's father, Dmitri Petrova, was a storied figure in Russian circles, an oligarch with fingers in everything from oil pipelines to exclusive art auctions. He used his influence to place Elena in the best boarding schools, the most prestigious finishing academies, ensuring she moved through society with effortless grace. Elena was clever, determined, and had a knack for reading the vulnerabilities of powerful men. By the time she stepped into Gregory Harrington's orbit, she was a seasoned socialite. Their worlds intersected at a London charity auction for children's hospitals hosted by the Harrington Foundation. Elena, representing a Russian philanthropic group, had donated a rare Fabergé egg. Gregory, intrigued by her porcelain complexion and magnetic poise, introduced himself. Their initial conversation was brief yet charged. Business cards were exchanged. Fleeting glances were shared. One dinner became two, then weekends together, masquerading as business trips. Elena, with her smoky voice and quietly intense presence, listened attentively to Gregory's grand ambitions. She laughed at his jokes, praised his visionary outlook, and made him feel as if he were the most important man in the world. In return, he lavished her with rare art pieces, Cartier bracelets, and whispered promises of a future far away from prying eyes. For Elena, this was a calculated dance. She saw in Gregory both a golden ticket and a puzzle to solve. Here was a man weighed down by responsibilities to a legacy older than anyone could remember. She found it tantalizing to know she could draw him away from that well-bred world. It gave her a sense of triumph. Yet she was not immune to Gregory's charm either. He could be remarkably considerate, sending her flowers in the middle of the night, reciting lines from Shakespeare he'd memorized during his boarding school days. Still, the specter of Sophia loomed. Elena knew that Gregory was married, and married men rarely left their wives, especially those with old money connections and unborn heirs. Yet she told herself that their love was different, that Gregory's marriage was already failing. Whenever doubts arose, Gregory would confide in her. "Sophia doesn't understand me like you do, or—" We married out of familial obligation. The more he lamented his marital misfortunes, the more Elena believed she was his solace. As their affair deepened, Elena began attending events in close proximity to the Harrington circle, though always disguised as a friend of a friend. She stood just far enough away to avoid direct scrutiny, but close enough to keep Gregory enthralled. She brushed shoulders with influencers, discreetly forging her own alliances. More than one insider noticed Gregory's lingering gazes at the mysterious Russian beauty, but assumed it was mere flirtation. When rumors began to swirl that Sophia was pregnant, Elena felt a spike of panic. She confronted Gregory in a penthouse suite at the Mandarin Oriental. With tears in her eyes, she asked if the baby changed things. He cradled her face and murmured, "It doesn't have to. My marriage has been a shell for a long time." And in that stolen moment, Elena believed him, or chose to. A wave of euphoria washed over her when Gregory quietly invited her to a grand gala that the Harrington Foundation would soon host at the prestigious Claridge's Hotel in London. It was rumored that the event would bring together the biggest names in finance, art, and aristocracy. "Be my companion for the night," he told her, "I want you by my side." What Elena did not realize was how very public this event would be, and how precarious their escapade truly was. Because while she looked forward to a night of diamonds and champagne, Sophia was planning an entirely different spectacle. One that would shatter the illusions Elena had been building piece by glossy piece. The Harrington Foundation's annual gala for global education had for more than a decade been a glittering fixture on London's high society calendar. Industry titans, philanthropy, giants, and members of Europe's oldest noble families clamored for invitations. It was part fundraiser, part social event of the season, and 100% strategic networking opportunity. The guest list read like a who's who of the wealthiest and most influential in the world. Think seats taken by the likes of Bill Gates, Richard Branson, and other luminaries. In previous years, Sophia played a significant role in organizing the gala. She ensured the decor was tasteful, but never gaudy, the performances memorable yet dignified. She curated the auction items, ranging from rare diamond chokers to exclusive safari experiences, and personally selected the theme, typically something close to her heart, such as literacy in the developing world or scholarship funds for underprivileged youth. But this year was different. The minute the planning committee convened, there was an awkward hush regarding Sophia. Her name was conspicuously absent from the list of key organizers. Gregory insisted that she was focused on personal matters, a vague nod to her pregnancy. In truth, he was trying to distance her from an event he intended to use for different purposes, most notably parading Elena as his trusted business associate in front of the wealthiest men and women on the planet. Behind the scenes, the staff whispered, would Sophia step down from her duties so easily? If so, was everything all right in the Harrington marriage? The Harrington butlers, chauffeurs, and kitchen staff had their own gossip networks spanning multiple estates. Rumors circulated like wildfire. Some said Sophia had taken ill. Others insisted she was just delegating responsibilities, and a few even mentioned that Gregory was traveling far too often without her. Speculation became the staff's daily sport. Meanwhile, Gregory was busy orchestrating a high-profile guest list. He personally invited Elon Musk's European PR team, top executives from Tesla, and high-ranking officials from the British government. He extended invitations to new tech entrepreneurs in the green energy sector, seeking to make strategic alliances. Each day, envelopes of acceptance poured in, further inflating his ego and sense of control. Elena Petrova was thrilled beyond measure to be included. She selected a black velvet gown, embroidered with gold filigree, a custom piece from a designer friend in Paris. She booked her own suite at Claridge's, wanting to remain discreet, and studied the names on the guest list, memorizing faces and potential allies. This event could catapult her from mysterious consort to a legitimate influencer in philanthropic and social circles. If she played her cards right, she might secure her position by Gregory's side in a far more public way than any mistress had a right to expect. Unbeknownst to both Gregory and Eleanor, Sophia had been closely monitoring the gala preparations through her connections. The Harrington brand was still half hers, at least for now, and her father's legal advisors had made sure to keep her informed. When she learned that Elena Petrova's name was on the official guest list, her heart pounded with fury and a strange sense of relief. Finally, the moment had arrived. If Gregory wanted to humiliate her by flaunting his mistress at an event they had traditionally co-hosted, Sophia would not let it happen without consequences. Sophia consulted with her father, Augusto Moretti, who reminded her of a principle he had used in building his own empire. Always make sure you hold the trump card. Over the past months, Sophia had gathered financial and legal documents detailing the complex structure of the Harrington conglomerate. She had uncovered certain vulnerabilities, a labyrinth of trusts, shell companies, and inherited titles that in the right hands could shift control. Augustus offered her the best legal minds, ensuring that by the gala night, Sophia would be armed with the ultimate surprise. Sophia arranged for an impeccably tailored gown that would accommodate her pregnant belly, a shimmering emerald creation that symbolized both her Moretti lineage and her unwavering strength. She engaged a private security team to accompany her men loyal not just to the Harrington name, but to her personally. Their mere presence would raise eyebrows and signal that something was about to change. Still, she played the part of the unsuspecting wife, instructing the staff to keep her travel plans under wraps. She declined interviews, turned down invitations, and maintained a low profile in the final weeks leading up to the gala. Her silence only fueled speculation. Some tabloids even ran stories that Sophia was bedridden or had fled to Italy for an extended sabbatical. And so the stage was set. Gregory, confidently oblivious, believed everything was falling perfectly into place for the Harrington Foundation's most memorable gala yet. Elena eagerly awaited her moment in the spotlight. Sophia, pregnant and resolute, stood ready with the one card that would eclipse every diamond, every donation, every handshake in that room. The days leading up to the gala were marked by mounting tension within the Harrington circle. Claridge's hotel, chosen for its timeless elegance, buzzed with activity. Florists arranged towering centerpieces of white orchids and calla lilies. Decorators unfurled plush red carpets, complete with gold-trimmed edges. Technicians tested the sound system, ensuring the classical quartet's music would float effortlessly through the grand ballroom. Meanwhile, paparazzi staked out vantage points along Brook Street, eager to capture the star-studded arrivals. Gregory arrived at the hotel 2 days early to oversee last-minute details. He personally inspected the suite reserved for their high-profile guests, including a rumored contingent from the Vatican and philanthropic heavyweights from Asia. His phone rang incessantly. Calls from the Harrington board, from foreign investors, from journalists hoping for a soundbite. To everyone he spoke with the polished ease of a man in total control. But beneath that suave exterior was a coil of anxiety. This gala had to be immaculate. He wanted to leave no doubt that he was the visionary leader to take Harrington conglomerate to unprecedented heights. At odd hours, Gregory would slip away to Elena Petrova's suite. Their encounters were both passionate and subdued, fueled by the thrill of secrecy but tinged with foreboding. Elena sensed Gregory's nerves. She offered him comforting words, reminding him that everything was in place for the big event. She massaged his shoulders, whispered sweet praises in Russian, and sometimes teased him about their eventual public debut. But each time she mentioned coming out in the open, Gregory's expression darkened. He insisted they maintain their discretion a while longer. Elena grew a little uneasy. She wanted to believe Gregory would soon embrace their relationship publicly, but she saw how swiftly he could compartmentalize his life. She found it baffling that a man who prided himself on honesty in business could be so duplicitous in love. Still, Eleanor reminded herself that men like Gregory were shaped by complex family legacies and tangled financial obligations. Perhaps patience was the price she must pay to secure her future as his confidant. Meanwhile, at the Harrington estate, Sophia was quietly making arrangements of her own. She decided to spend the final night before the gala in London, booking herself into the Corinthia Hotel under her maiden name, Sophia Moretti. If Gregory noticed or cared, he gave no outward sign. Perhaps he even assumed she was spending time with her family in Italy, or simply resting at the Surrey Manor. The staff, forbidden from revealing her whereabouts, followed her instructions to the letter. Sophia's private security detail. 5 imposing men with discreet earpieces shuffled in and out of her suite. Her father's legal counsel, a formidable attorney named Giancarlo Rossi, delivered the final set of documents. Everything was in order. Ownership papers detailing how certain trusts and holdings would revert to Sophia under multiple trigger conditions, including marital misconduct. In a quirk of old Harrington estate law, certain titles and properties originally belonged to the wives of Harrington heirs, an archaic tradition from when British peerages passed down partial property rights through female lines under specific circumstances. Sophia felt a rush of defiance and heartbreak. There was no going back now. The child in her belly shifted as if sensing her turmoil. She cradled it gently. We deserve better than this, she thought. A wave of sadness followed. She had once believed in Gregory. In a kinder world, they could have forged an empire together, raising a child who knew nothing of scandal or betrayal. Instead, she was about to publicly unmask him. The tabloids sensed a storm brewing. A few tabloids speculated that a major announcement would rock the gala. Anonymous sources alluded to tensions within the Harrington clan. Could this be a hostile takeover? Read one headline in the Daily Mirror. Will the pregnant Mrs. Harrington appear? Asked another. It was all speculation, but enough to ratchet up public interest. On the eve of the gala, London's elite braced themselves for a spectacle. Socialites debated outfit choices, each hoping to stand out among the sea of couture. Business magnates strategized who to meet and which deals to finalize. Meanwhile, the staff at Claridge's polished silverware under glistening chandeliers, occasionally pausing to share rumors about the Harringtons' mysterious absence of a united front. No one but Sophia and a select few insiders truly understood the magnitude of what was about to unfold. And as the clock ticked toward the momentous evening, the tension in the air felt electric, like static before a thunderstorm that would leave no one untouched by its force. The night of the gala arrived in a swirl of limousine exhaust and camera flashes. From the early evening, a steady stream of high-profile guests spilled onto Brook Street. Men in bespoke tuxedos escorted women adorned in sparkling gowns and heirloom jewels. The roped-off entrance to Claridge's transformed into a spectacle as paparazzi shouted names, capturing every twirl, every wave. Inside the grand ballroom was resplendent with thousands of fairy lights, woven into elaborate floral arrangements. The evening's theme, a renaissance of education, was reflected in the decor, ornate references to historical libraries. Old globes and antique books served as centerpieces. A tastefully arranged stage awaited the night's main speeches, flanked by 2 large screens for multimedia presentations. An orchestra played softly, creating an ambiance that was at once luxurious and expectant. Gregory Harrington stood near the main entrance, graciously welcoming guests. His tailored midnight blue tuxedo accentuated his broad shoulders and unmistakable confidence. He shook hands with politicians, exchanged cheek kisses with European royalty, and offered polite nods to tech entrepreneurs he hoped to impress. The presence of so many potential investors and collaborators buoyed him. This was his moment to shine as the unstoppable force behind the Harrington Empire's expansion. Across the room, Elena Petrova glided through the crowd, turning heads with her black velvet gown embroidered with gold. She lingered by groups engaged in hushed conversations, offering her warmest smiles and well-timed remarks in perfect English or French, depending on her audience. Tonight was her debut, and she intended to seize every opportunity to be recognized not merely as some socialite, but as a power player in her own right. As the clock approached 8, the ballroom was nearly at capacity. Waiters circulated with champagne flutes and hors d'oeuvres. Gregory ascended the stage, tapped the microphone, and addressed the crowd. His voice, smooth and measured, carried the easy authority of a man born to public speaking. He thanked the audience for their continued generosity toward educational causes worldwide. He outlined new initiatives to collaborate with philanthropic partners in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Applause filled the room. Cameras flashed, and for a moment Gregory believed he had orchestrated the perfect evening. But the final act of his speech was cut short by a sudden commotion at the main entrance. A hush spread through the crowd like a ripple on water. Heads turned. Photographers scrambled to refocus their lenses. Gregory blinked under the bright stage lights, unsure what was happening. Then he saw the figure at the entrance. Sophia Harrington, glowing in an emerald gown that clung to the gentle curve of her pregnant belly, stepped into the ballroom. She stood poised, her hair swept into a regal chignon, and her delicate features betraying none of the whirlwind of emotions roiling inside her. Behind her, 5 men in tailored suits formed a formidable presence, clearly acting as security. Each wore a discreet earpiece, scanning the room with professional vigilance. The sudden appearance of Mrs. Harrington, rumored to be indisposed, sent shockwaves through the crowd. Whispers cascaded from one cluster of guests to another. "She's here. Oh my, she's pregnant. Did you see those guards? Something's amiss." An awkward stillness took hold as people stepped aside to let her pass. She glided forward, meeting Gregory's gaze across the ballroom. He remained on stage, his hand frozen on the microphone. Their eyes locked in a silent exchange, her expression resolute, his a mixture of shock and dread. At this point, Elena Petrova instinctively moved toward the stage, uncertain how to react. She caught Sophia's stare, cool, penetrating, but not hysterical or pleading. It was the look of a woman who knew precisely what she was doing. Gregory collected himself just enough to speak into the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, it appears my lovely wife Sophia has decided to join us this evening." His voice wavered, but he forced a charming smile. The crowd tittered politely, unsure whether they were witnessing a family reconciliation or a spectacle of scandal. Sophia walked slowly, methodically, until she reached the base of the stage. One of her security guards helped her ascend the steps. Gregory extended a hand toward her, perhaps out of habit, but she ignored it. The hush was palpable. Guests shifted uneasily, torn between curiosity and propriety. Before Gregory could reclaim the microphone, Sophia took it and gazed at the audience. Her voice was steady, though laced with emotion. "Good evening, everyone. I do apologize for interrupting. It's been a while since I've attended one of our beloved Harrington Foundation galas. I see so many familiar faces, and some new ones, too." An uneasy laugh rippled through the crowd. Cameras continued to flash, capturing every nuance of this unfolding drama. Sophia looked directly at Gregory, her tone growing sharper. I came here tonight because, despite our family's tradition of philanthropy, there are times when one must also stand up for personal integrity. So I want to share a few words, not just about our charitable endeavors, but about the very meaning of partnership and trust. Gregory forced a strained smile. Sophia, dear, can we perhaps discuss this privately? He reached for the microphone, but she stepped back, maintaining control of it. The tension radiated so powerfully that even the normally poised aristocrats in the front row shifted in their seats. Just then, as if on cue, Elena Petrova emerged beside the stage, attempting to remain inconspicuous, but failing miserably. Eyes flickered between Sophia and Elena. Some recognized Elena from various events. Others asked each other in hushed tones who she was. And still others noticed Gregory's uneasy body language, reading volumes into it. Sophia inhaled, steadying herself. No, Gregory. This discussion needs to be public. Because I believe this matter concerns not just our marriage, but the Harrington legacy and all those who stand with this family. No classical orchestra or polite conversation could mask the tension now. The gala crowd, transfixed, resembled spectators in a Roman arena waiting for the final blow. The luster of crystal chandeliers and the clink of champagne glasses seemed oddly out of place in such a raw, human drama. Sophia turned to face the audience once more. Many of you have known my husband and me as a united front dedicating ourselves to global education causes. Tonight I stand before you carrying our child. She placed a hand on her belly. And I have learned truths about my husband that make me question the foundation of our marriage. A ripple of shock coursed through the assembly. Gasps were audible. Gregory, desperate, tried to reach for Sophia's arm. Sophia, please. This is not the time or place. She stepped back, holding the microphone with a steadiness that belied her trembling heart. Oh, I think it's exactly the time and place. You see, Gregory, you've paraded a certain associate here. She glanced at Elena, whose face flushed to our events, our dinners, even our family home, all while claiming I was merely absent or unwell. But the truth is, I've never been more aware. The cameras, the credit card bills, the phone records, all of it points to one inescapable fact. You broke your vows. A wave of murmurs surged through the crowd. Elena, feeling cornered, tried to exit the scene, but the throng of onlookers made it difficult. She settled for standing near the edge of the stage, face pale eyes, darting for an exit strategy. Gregory attempted to wrest the microphone from Sophia, but one of her security guards intervened, stopping him discreetly yet firmly. From the first row, a few philanthropic heavyweights exchanged concerned glances. The entire stage had become a battlefield of reputations. With measured composure, Sophia continued. What you might not realize, Gregory, is that the Harrington family fortune is not solely yours to command. My father, Augusto Moretti, helped restructure parts of this empire under various trusts and partnerships. And I hold here, she gestured to the folder carried by one of her guards, legal documentation proving that in the event of spousal misconduct or endangerment of our child's rightful inheritance, controlling interest in several Harrington properties and ventures reverts to me. Her words echoed in the hush. Audiences parted their lips in disbelief. Could it be possible that the pregnant wife, presumed powerless, held the real keys to the empire? Gregory's face contorted from panic to anger. You can't do this, he muttered through clenched teeth, trying to keep his voice low enough to remain somewhat dignified. This is insane, Sophia. You'll ruin both of us. Sophia gave him a look tinged with equal parts sadness and resolve. You did that the moment you decided our marriage was dispensable. She turned to the audience, her voice regaining composure. For those of you concerned about the Harrington Foundation, rest assured. My intention is not to destroy what we've built, but to ensure it isn't tainted by deceit and betrayal. Gasps and whispers grew louder. Some in attendance discreetly slipped away, not wanting to be embroiled in scandal. Others edged closer, drawn by the irresistible magnetism of real-life drama. The paparazzi took rapid-fire photos, capturing Gregory's stunned expression, Sophia's resolute poise, and Elena's distress. Finally, Elena found her courage and stepped forward. Her voice quivered but carried a tinge of defiance. Sophia, I didn't mean to. This was never about taking your place. Gregory said. Sophia cut her off, a single raised hand silencing her. I suggest you speak to Gregory about that. I hold no illusions about who is truly at fault. He made vows before God, and our families, not you. However, if you planned to assert any claim here, you'd find yourself outmaneuvered. I protect what is mine. Every word reverberated with finality. In that moment, it was clear to all who possessed the real power. Gregory, once the assured scion of an ancient empire, now stood as though the floor had collapsed beneath him. One of Sophia's security guards produced the folder containing the documents. The guard handed them to Sophia, who held them up for the crowd to see. She then spoke into the microphone, reading select clauses that outlined her newfound rights. This outlines a trust deed, signed 3 generations ago, reaffirmed when we married, she explained. In the event of proven marital misconduct, which we have in abundance, Sophia let the statement hang. Eyeing Gregory, all Harrington properties tied to the original family holdings become subject to special provisions. My father's legal team has verified that these provisions remain valid in the eyes of both British and Italian law. She offered a thin smile, an expression halfway between triumph and heartbreak. It appears our ancestors wanted to protect the Harrington wives, who sometimes came from wealthier or equally influential families, from exploitation. Today, ironically, these dusty old clauses serve to protect me and our child. An outburst of hushed conversation broke out among the gala attendees. Many tried to recall if they'd ever heard of such archaic laws. Others scanned the crowd for any sign of Charles Harrington. Gregory's father, the patriarch, only to realize that ill health had confined him to his estate. The absence of the old lion only heightened the sense of chaos. Gregory grabbed the microphone, prying it out of Sophia's hands at last. Ladies and gentlemen, please. His voice shook with fury and desperation. Let us not air our private matters so publicly. I urge you, please continue to enjoy this evening's festivities and support our cause for global education. The Harrington Foundation remains fully committed to its mission. He turned to Sophia, voice hushed but audible in the microphone. We can discuss this in private away from these cameras. Sophia remained steady. We will discuss it, of course. But tonight, I want everyone to understand that your indiscretions have consequences. Elena, her cheeks burning, looked mortified. She tried to slip away, but found herself cornered by a barrage of flashes and questions from bold reporters who had managed to infiltrate the event or sweet-talk their way in. Ms. Petrova, is it true you traveled with Mr. Harrington to Hong Kong last month? Were you aware he was still committed to his marriage? She fought back tears, unsure whether to defend herself or remain silent. In the span of minutes, the Harrington Gala had transformed from a stately fundraiser to a live feed scandal broadcast on social media. Dozens of smartphones captured every detail, streaming them to the world. Gregory's plan to assert his dominance had backfired spectacularly. At last, the voice of the MC, who had been standing on the sidelines, piped through the sound system. "If we could all give the Harringtons a moment, perhaps we can continue with our scheduled program. We have performances planned and there is a silent auction in the West Wing." But the event could no longer continue, as if nothing had happened. The bombshell had detonated, and the fallout would be massive. Gregory stiffly escorted Sophia off stage, flanked by security on one side and paparazzi on the other. Somewhere behind them, Elena stood, abandoned tears threatening to break through the veneer of her heavily lined eyes. Moments later, the ballroom erupted into hushed speculation and frenzied replays of the public confrontation. Everyone understood that the Harrington family saga had taken a dramatic turn, and no matter how gilded the facade, a scandal of this magnitude would be near impossible to contain. By the following morning, British tabloids were ablaze. Daily Mail, Harrington heiress strikes back. Pregnant wife. Storms. Gala, Chad. The Sun affair, laid bare. London's grandest gala becomes war zone. The Times' archaic trust laws, could they topple the Harrington dynasty? Social media platforms exploded with memes and hashtags. Harrington Gala Showdown, Team Sophia, Mistress Gate. Late-night talk show hosts made comedic sketches, dramatizing Gregory, cowering behind a bouquet of orchids, while Sophia, fierce and pregnant, brandished legal papers like a warrior's sword. At Harrington Manor, in Surrey, Charles Harrington watched live news coverage from his wheelchair, heart heavy with disappointment. The once proud patriarch had known Gregory was ambitious, but he had hoped marriage to Sophia would temper his son's impulsiveness. Now the entire Harrington name, revered for centuries, had become front-page fodder for scandal. He summoned the family's solicitors, intending to salvage what was left of the empire's reputation. Back in London, Sophia took refuge at the Corinthia Hotel, guarded by her security detail. Exhausted from the night's events, she found it difficult to sleep. She alternated between fierce resolve and waves of sorrow. She had loved Gregory. She had believed in their future. Still, she reminded herself why she'd done it, to protect their unborn child, and to refuse to remain complicit in a sham marriage. Augusto Moretti flew in from Milan with additional legal counsel. The Moretti family stood firmly behind Sophia, promising that any Harrington attempt to undermine her rights would face stiff counteraction. The plan was not necessarily to strip Gregory of everything, but to ensure he no longer had unilateral control. Gregory, for his part, retreated to an undisclosed location with a few close associates, including some sympathetic board members. He refused all interview requests and turned his phone off to avoid the avalanche of messages. Even Elena Petrova could not reach him. In a desperate text, she pleaded for an explanation, Gregory. "You promised me a future. What's happening now?" She received no answer. In high society circles, lines were being drawn. Some of the older aristocrats clucked their tongues at Gregory's indiscretion, seeing it as a grievous break from the code of gentlemanly behavior. Others criticized Sophia for airing marital problems, so publicly believing that real ladies handle such matters behind closed doors. Still others rallied to Sophia's side, admiring her boldness in taking a stand. Offers of help poured in from philanthropic circles, who respected Sophia's philanthropic track record more than Gregory's grandiose visions. International women's organizations reached out offering statements of support. Some business moguls declared they would maintain their partnerships with the Harrington Foundation, provided Sophia took a leading role. Meanwhile, the Harrington conglomerate's stock took a noticeable dip. Investors, spooked by the personal drama, worried it signaled deeper instability. Rumors of a potential internal shakeup at Harrington Global Holdings circulated with some board members, discussing whether Gregory should temporarily step down as CEO to focus on personal matters. For Sophia, the day after the gala felt surreal. She woke up still wearing last night's emerald gown, having collapsed on the hotel bed. Her phone buzzed with messages, reporters, well-wishers, distant relatives. Even a few ex-boyfriends had surfaced out of nowhere, offering cryptic support or hoping for a chance to re-enter her life. But she put all those distractions aside to focus on what mattered: her baby. She arranged for a private physician to conduct a thorough checkup. The stress had been enormous, but medically she and the baby were fine. That was her solace amid the storm. With the world waiting to see her next move, Sophia held tight to her father's advice. Never act rashly in the heat of victory, Augusto had told her. Let the pieces fall into place, then strike your next move with precision. Sophia nodded, steeling herself for the road ahead. She had won the public confrontation, but the real fight for the Harrington empire was just beginning. Gregory Harrington sat alone in a discreet penthouse apartment in Mayfair, owned by a long-time family friend, Peter Winfield. The shades were drawn, blocking out the London skyline. At 35 years old, Gregory had never felt so caged by his own circumstances. The unstoppable force of his ambition had slammed head first into the immovable object of his wife's resolve. He replayed the gala confrontation in his mind. How had he let things spiral so far out of control? He recalled the surge of adrenaline when Elena Petrova first caught his eye, the thrill of secret rendezvous, the fleeting sense of escape from the responsibilities that weighed on him like lead. But now, in the harsh light of day, those moments felt juvenile. The cost was unimaginably high. In a desperate attempt to salvage his position, Gregory spent hours on the phone with Harrington board members, solicitors, and PR specialists. Most calls ended with apologies or polite evasion. We'll get back to you, Gregory. The situation is delicate. Even the most loyal of the Harrington staff found it hard to defend him publicly. Yes, Mr. Harrington is dealing with private family matters, they repeated ad nauseum to the press. Legal experts explained the precariousness of Gregory's predicament. The archaic trust laws combined with the pre-nuptial clauses introduced by Augusto Moretti indeed gave Sophia substantial leverage. If Gregory challenged them in court, it could trigger a protracted legal battle that would further tarnish the family name. Even if he somehow prevailed legally, the public relations nightmare would deepen. Sleep eluded him. During the day, he drank black coffee chain-smoked on the penthouse balcony and ignored calls from Elena. He felt a twinge of guilt toward her, too. He had whispered sweet nothings about a future life of luxury and partnership. Now faced with reality, he had no desire to speak to her. She symbolized his folly. In the quiet hours, he also wrestled with how to atone for what he'd done to Sophia. A piece of him still cared for her. He remembered the first time they kissed on the shores of Lake Como, how her laughter lit up any room she entered, how she spoke 5 languages fluently and glided between cultural worlds with astounding ease. But his shame and pride were too large to allow an apology. Finally, Gregory decided to act. He needed to shore up alliances. He reached out to elder statesmen of the Harrington dynasty, distant cousins who held ceremonial roles in the family trust. He convinced them that the family should present a united front to the media, urging Sophia to handle the matter privately. Some cousins expressed sympathy, others rebuked him, calling him reckless. Nonetheless, he pressed on. He also planned an emergency press statement through the Harrington Foundation. The statement, carefully worded, would assert that Mr. Harrington and Mrs. Harrington remain committed to resolving personal matters amicably, and that the family's philanthropic mission continues undeterred. It was damage control pure and simple. Yet beneath the facade of carefully managed, but Gregory knew the question remained. Would Sophia accept any compromise short of his complete capitulation? And even if she did, what would become of their marriage? In the end, Gregory realized that his beloved sense of invulnerability was gone. Like a gambler who had bet everything on a bluff and lost, he was left with nothing but regrets and the dawning recognition that he might have just destroyed the very thing he had spent his whole life trying to build. Sophia Harrington's next public move was a carefully orchestrated statement delivered at her father's London townhouse. With the Moretti and Harrington family crests displayed prominently behind her, she spoke to a select group of journalists. "I want to thank everyone who has shown concern for our family during this tumultuous time. My priority remains the welfare of my child and the continued integrity of the Harrington Foundation's philanthropic work. Mr. Harrington and I are in discussions to resolve these issues in a manner respectful to all parties involved. Our families have weathered storms before, and we shall do so again." The statement was measured, reinforcing that while she held tremendous power, she was not eager to burn everything down. She concluded with a pledge to personally oversee the upcoming scholarship initiative for underprivileged students in Eastern Europe, a project originally conceptualized by Gregory, but never realized. Social media buzzed again, praising Sophia for her poise. Even the mainstream press commended her magnanimous approach in adversity. Investors, somewhat reassured by her grace under fire, began stabilizing Harrington Global Holdings' stock. Donations to the foundation soared, ironically bolstered by the scandal's visibility. Meanwhile, Elena Petrova, feeling spurned and humiliated, left London. She flew to Paris, where she considered her next moves. She debated selling her story to the tabloids, but the Petrova family's code of discretion prevented such public theatrics. Instead, she contemplated forging new alliances. Rumor had it she was spotted in Monte Carlo, attending high society events and quietly seeking another powerful benefactor. In hushed corners of the Harrington boardroom, strategists grappled with how best to orchestrate a peaceful resolution. Some advocated for an amicable separation. Gregory and Sophia would divorce quietly, each retaining certain holdings, while publicly declaring mutual respect. Others urged the couple to reconcile, if only to maintain stability for the brand. But a forced reunion would fool no one, least of all Gregory and Sophia themselves. Over the coming weeks, Gregory and Sophia arranged clandestine meetings in neutral, lawyer-filled boardrooms. Though each meeting bristled with tension, there was a common thread: the child. Sophia insisted the baby be raised with a strong sense of both Harrington and Moretti heritage. Gregory, chastened by recent events, recognized his paternal responsibility. They agreed that if they divorced, both parents would maintain involvement in the child's upbringing. Yet the emotional chasm between them seemed unbridgeable. Trust once shattered is not easily restored. Sophia found herself mourning the life they could have had. Gregory found himself grappling with the knowledge that his own selfishness had brought them to this precipice. In the midst of these negotiations, Charles Harrington sent a handwritten letter to Sophia, commending her strength and lamenting his son's failings. He expressed hope that she would remain part of the Harrington legacy, regardless of how their marriage ended. The letter moved Sophia to tears. She wrote back, thanking Charles for his kindness. When the Harrington Foundation's next major event, a forum on global digital education, took place 6 months later. It was Sophia, visibly further along in her pregnancy, who took the podium. She spoke eloquently about bridging technological gaps, for disadvantaged communities, earning a standing ovation. Gregory was conspicuous by his absence. He had chosen to remain out of the limelight, working behind the scenes on various investment projects. Some said it was a forced exile. Others speculated he was soul-searching. Only time would tell if Gregory found the humility and wisdom to rebuild his relationship with Sophia, or if she would decide her destiny lay elsewhere. But one thing was certain. The child she carried would inherit a family legacy, not of silent compliance, but of bold confrontation, where betrayal was met head-on, and power could shift in an instant. As for the Harrington name, it now carried an asterisk, a reminder to the world that beneath the veneer of pedigree and wealth lay human fragility of ambition and the capacity for both betrayal and redemption. Thank you for joining us on this tumultuous journey inside the glittering halls and boardrooms of power. We've witnessed how even vast fortunes and noble traditions can unravel when betrayal collides with ambition. The Harrington saga is far from over. Its next chapter may see alliances shift, fortunes reforged, or perhaps a glimmer of reconciliation. Through it all, one undeniable lesson emerges. When love and loyalty shatter, the fallout can reshape entire empires. If you've been captivated by this real-life drama novel, where every diamond sparkled with secrets, be sure to hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. Are you Team Sophia, or do you believe Gregory can redeem himself? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into gripping sagas of wealth, power, and passion. Until next time, keep your eyes open for the brightest lights, often cast the darkest shadows.